Thank you, Ridhmi. Thank you very much. Afternoon to all. We have people joining from different parts of the world, so thank you very much for all tuning in. Let's dive right into the conversation. People have been waiting for this conversation today. Thushera, I'm going to start with you. Growth through analytics is an important topic. In fact, McKinsey says that 5% of top line, especially for telcos, should be contributed through analytics and AI. Why is it important today, and especially now? Talk us through this importance today and how we can really grow our companies.
Thank you. Good day to everyone. Since you talk about McKinsey, the McKinsey has said next 10 years, by 2030, right? So 30% of the labor force is going to get eliminated. Now, yes, I think when you hear these kind of news, it raises our eyebrows and looking at, okay, what's going to happen to our labor force? Are they going to be without a job? So good thing is all this time it has happened and none of these people went without a job because we create a new job. So that's a good thing about technology advancement. When you talk about, now our topic is how we can increase the EBITDA. EBITDA is all actually resulting in terms of the productivity. When you talk about productivity, it's not just the things that we are producing rapidly to the market. It's not only the productivity. It comes with multiple things. It comes in as a form of the quality, the predictability, and quality of that output that we produce. It's the relevance of that output that we produce. What happens if you don't? You increase the cycle time. So you produce something fast, but it's not meaningful or it's not relevant. Then you come back and redo. So that increases cycle times. So that's where the current problem is largely, I think the later topics we can talk about, is it AI, how we can really get it to a scale, right? So then there are multiple things that comes in. So that's where I think it's very important that then how we can leverage AI to maximize our efficiencies and engineering productivity. Now, great example is around cybersecurity. Earlier on, even today, so we are actually monitoring our security or the networks manually, or even with the set of tools. It's actually it says it's aftermath, right? It's after it happens, it says, okay, now its security is compromised. But use of AI, you know in advance that what kind of vulnerabilities, what kind of threats, what type of threats, and who will attack your network or your services. And then you can have a more like a rather predictive or reactive. So you can complete your shifting left to make sure you have the system in place to not to get to the problem that you're getting into, right? Because every time you hit a problem, everything is put on hold and your productivity goes down, right? And again, the second one is it enhances the precision of predictability. So that's the one other thing. Is typically the analytics is more like a statistical analytics gives you some level of indication how it has been happened. It's a lag indicator, right? So we need to move from lag indicator to the more like leading indicators, right? So that's where the challenge is. So if you leverage these two things right, then we are looking at how we are really moving forward with this the AI to leverage in our enterprises. Great example is even this language barriers is no more, right? I mean, gone are the days that in most of the conversation, you worried about what the other person is going to, which language other person is going to speak. But today is real-time translation is involved. Even now, if you enable text-to-speech here in your Zoom platform, you know exactly what the text that appears, even though you have a problem hearing what the language the person is speaking, you exactly convert language into a real-time text, right? So now those things, it's actually efficient in it's a call center environment. The person receiving call, unable to understand what the person is speaking, it appears in a text, right? So it's increased the call center efficiencies. All of this leading into, as I told you, it's one thing in my perspective, which is productivity. So if you think about increasing the EBITDA, you need to think about increasing productivity. That means that you do things with less, right? And again,
that's
don't.
really interesting. Actually, efficiency is one of the things that really stands out, Thushera. So thank you. I think that's a really good point. I think being on the same lines, right? Victoria, I'm going to turn this to you. We've established the importance of analytics and AI. I think Thushera very right to like kind of put it out, saying how important it is in terms of efficiency as well. We're in a notion where we build a lot of models, really, but we don't really adopt them, right? A lot of the companies are stuck here in really adopting them. Victoria, talk us some of the strategies about how we can really operationalize, not just build analytics, but really kind of operationalize it and show returns out of it, because at the end of the tunnel, we need to see returns as well, right? So take us through that, Victoria. I think you're on mute. Still not able to hear. Okay, I think let's move on with Vishal for the time being, right? Vishal, this is coming to you, right? You, especially from a technical perspective, I think I want you from a CIO's perspective talking about this topic, right? Analytics and AI cannot operate in silos, we all know that. And one of the biggest challenge, especially in organizations, when they transform their organization to a more analytics-driven organization, they find it difficult to have these insights kind of turn into actions, right? From your point of view, we also call this the last mile, right? Making sure to really see the value of analytics, we really have to execute it properly and make sure that AI not only makes recommendations, they make actions as well. Tell us some of the strategies from your point of view. How can we make this happen, especially in telcos in an organization?
Thank you. You see, the way I look at AI or any evolving technology for that matter, it is a tool, right? It is a tool for solving a business problem. I think this is the mindset that we should have, first and foremost thing. And how do we efficiently use this tool? You know, there are silos in organization irrespective of how much we've been talking about it. Maybe we've been able to break a bit of a barrier, but we have not been able to bulldoze it completely. And based upon what I see, the successful companies that have done, they've really looked at AI and other technologies more from a business angle and how to solve a business problem. So in this case, what happens is you bring together your business, your analytics, IT, operations, everybody together in one place and build the use cases. It's important to understand that there are business users who understand the business very well, and they have to sit with the data analyst, data science team, and come up with the use cases that can be scaled across. A lot of time, what we see happening within organization is pilots are being done on a small scale, but when you want to take it out, scale it up, it fails there. One of the other examples that I could give across to you, okay, let me give you an example of IT itself, me being a CIO. What happens, there's a tool that we buy, and a lot of efforts goes behind what we do, but we forget to look into the IT systems, which does not have a capability to bring the information on real time or as it happens, or the person who is dealing with it is not aware as to how do we go about bringing it across. So we need to ensure that all the people are coming together and looking at this particular problem so that a common outcome can be made and we can scale it up end of the day and it does not fail after the pilot is being done. Real life example, not of the AI, but 2 weeks ago, something happened in our own organization. Let me give you something very close to me. During the COVID, we wanted to revamp our eKYC process. We wanted to ensure that there is no physical touch in the eKYC from a consumer perspective. So, since we're from Nepal, getting the thumbprint biometric is very, very important because it is regulatory mandated. So we use the Google Vision to get the information out from our national identity or license plates, so on and so forth. We also used a state-of-the-art company to get the biometrics out from the camera of the phone itself. Everything went fine in our lab conditions, right? We're getting 80 plus or even 90% accuracy in our AKYC. When we piloted it out into the real life, our accuracy was less than 20%. What we realized at that point of time was, though we thought we have a cross-functional team working together, a very vital piece was missing, which way the point of sales themselves, who had to use it day in and out. We realized that we were working in a lab perfect ecosystem with our high-end phones, testing it out, our connectivity was great. But now think about the Indian subcontinent ecosystem and how your dealer distributor ecosystem is put in place. There were lots of people who did not even know how to operate the camera properly, or their phone sets specifications were so low that it would not be supported. Since we did not onboard one of the key stakeholders, once it went out of our lab, it failed miserably. So, if we want to really scale it up and ensure that things work out in the market, rethink who are the stakeholders and ensure that you get it perfected is what I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks. That was really insightful because we talk, really agile environment, how important that is, right? We need to come together as a team and everyone has to play their part. Victor, I think you're okay now. I'm going to go back to you on this question, right? Since Thushera also kind of spoke about the needs of analytics and AI now, especially now, I think one of the questions I wanted to kind of ask you is that we build a lot of analytics models really, but it's really difficult to operationalize, right? Talk us through some of the strategies that you think is going to work, not just to build solutions, but really to operationalize them so that we can really see value. Because at the end of the tunnel, what we really need to see is also value, right? Talk us through some of the strategies, Victoria, and tell us your point of view.
Yeah, thank you. You can hear me now, right?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes, okay. Okay, so yes, the use cases adoption is difficult. To become a data-driven is difficult. And not only for those companies that hasn't started yet, but also for those companies that started with their data-driven journey several years ago, and now they fail to accelerate. They fail to generate the growth that they expected. And in my opinion, these are because organizational problems that slow down the adoption of big data. These problems, in my opinion, are the lack of a big data program versus departmental developments. Then the second one would be that we don't have enough sponsorship from the top management. Then we find information silos, system limitations, lack of skill in the organization, and sometimes the company hasn't launched a cultural transformation program. And this creates a disconnection between the technical teams and the business teams. So a part of the solution, from my perspective, would be to adopt a big data program. And this big data program has to cover the four main pillars: data, technology, organization, and business. If you don't handle the four in parallel, the four pillars, you are not going to success, right? The second one would be to involve the top management. If we don't have a huge sponsorship from the top management, from the general manager, since this big data adoption is going to transform deeply your organization, you need their approval, you need their involvement, you need their sponsorship. And third, and this, of course, depends on the level of maturity of the companies. From our experience, what we've seen is that the advanced analytics center of excellence are key in this big data adoption. This analytics center of excellence not only discover relevant insights from data, transform them into actionable actions for business, industrialize those use cases, but they monitor and lead the big data adoption program. They also share their knowledge with the rest of the organization. They define the use cases roadmap, and finally, they also manage those third parties so the whole organization has the same methodology, unified methodology.
Wow, okay, that's really good. I think knowledge sharing is really powerful. Thanks, Victoria, that's really good. I think I'm going to follow up through that question to you back again, right? One of my mentors actually very recently said, strategy is important. You spoke about the 4 pillars, very important. Execution is as important as well, if not probably more. Large telcos really, they have to prioritize the AI funnel, right? We can't obviously, when we have a lot of projects that we need to, transform with AI and things like that, we can't do everything at once, right? We have to prioritize. Tell me strategies on how we can really prioritize. Should we look at value? Should we look at quick wins? Should it be a combination of both? Talk us through some of these things. Yeah.
I love this question because in our company we've made huge efforts in order to define, to implement, and to share with our B2B customers a methodology in order to prioritize use cases. We call it the UCD, the use case discovery. And this exercise consists of 2 phases. The first one would be the discovery phase. We coordinate meetings with the main stakeholders. We find out their needs, their challenges, but also we gather the available data and also the current systems, the current technology available. From this first phase, we have the long list. Let's say we have 100 use cases, okay? But then we have to prioritize them. So this is the important phase here. What we see for each of those use cases are 4 variables. The first one would be the business impact, that is important. The second one would be the technical feasibility. If a use case needs some data or some technology, libraries, etc., that I don't have yet, probably that use case is not going to be prioritized. The third one is the synergy. Is that use case, does it has any synergy with other use cases? Do they, for example, use the same or similar sources that are going to be normalized, and then if I choose them, I'm going to get synergies? And the fourth one, and I think is one of the most important one, is the alignment with the strategy of the company, okay? So from this prioritization, we have a short list, and as you can see, since we use that variable, how is that use case aligned with the company strategy, we avoid to select by default those big return of investment use cases.
That's really good, actually. I think while we have this prioritization of funneling approach and the importance of it, and then we talk about strategies, Albert, I'm going to move to you now, right? So you obviously have, you run a company that's product-based, and you've obviously spoken to so many leaders in the telco industry as well, right? With what Victoria said in terms of prioritizing, you have seen clients really executing it as well, right? So talk us through what are some of the quick wins telcos have really harnessed through this AI technology and what they have seen in terms of scaling as well, right? When you talk to telcos, you obviously have been in touch with them, they have a good relationship as well. So in your perspective from your clients, what have they really used in terms of AI use cases, and what have they seen in terms of scaling returns as well?
Thanks. That's a very good question, Ashinka, and very important one. Quickly, let me start by saying I hope everyone is well and safe, especially during this challenging pandemic situation. Now, going back to your question, fully agree with what Victoria mentioned about use case discovery, putting a strategy to it, and understanding what are high impact and low effort, and what is low impact and high effort. So some of you might have heard of Simon Sinek. He always speaks about before any company does anything, you start with why. Why do you need use cases? Why do you need to prioritize? And if we look at telcos, speaking to a lot of them, they always think of these three big rocks: make money, save money, and be future proof. That means you are able to adapt to the changes that technology brings. And if I start with the third one, so there's machine learning and AI, it enables the telco to do a lot of things that used to be impossible. Think of it this way. Every one of us maybe has one phone. It started with 1G, now we're in 4G, and now shifting to 5G. From one user, now every user has multiple devices. We start talking about 5G and IoT. That means there will be lots and lots of big size of data that the telco will own. Now the question is, if the telco owns a lot of this data, why are the Apples and the Googles and the Facebooks of the world monetizing better? It's because they understand how to really utilize leverage from orchestrated data. Now the telcos, they have a lot of data, but right now, not a lot of telcos are able to connect them together. That means the same source of truth and the same version of truth. The marketing team can look at it, the customer service, the technical people, the network planning. The important thing is all of the business decisions should be tied to a single source of truth. That means whatever decisions the CFO is making, the CIO is making, the network planning is making, these are all based on this one. Now, let me give a very specific example. 5G is coming. Now, for most telcos, they don't have a lot of budget, no resource to do everything at the same time. So the question is, where do I put my priority-based stations? Now, it used to be that the network planners will only look at network stats and traffic. Gone are those days. It has to be looking at network stats, KPIs, subscriber expectation, and most importantly, what's the customer value? And this is a CFO topic. That means all of this data should be seen from different angles. It should be leveraged by the different people, and they should be able to prioritize. And this is where value-based prioritization comes in. If we're able to do that in the telcos, then that means we can get more by doing less, and then we're returning better scale from it. I hope that answers your question, Ashinka.
All right, thank you. Yes, it does. I'm going to tell this conversation now, right? I think we've spoken about strategy, how we can kickstart the AI journey, and some of these really insightful conversations, right? But really, when we want to tilt the conversation to scaling, right, the growth, to make sure that we have upward trend in the growth trajectory. Thushera, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to call this traditional analytics mainly because a lot of the companies, they know to kind of look at the data and figure out what happened in the past, what went wrong, very descriptive level of analytics, and diagnose what happened. but not often are they good at really predicting and prescribing what to do next as well, right? And AI is a technology that we can really harness through this growth trajectory as well. Tell me, what do you think, how can companies really jump to this scale and really leap off analytics? Take us through some of the strategies maybe companies can do in order to get to this level of scaling.
Thanks, Ashika. Now, when you talk about strategy on scaling, first is the company should have to have a strategy on AI, right? So that strategy have to be, it's not somebody really come and say, okay, this is what it's for you. It has to be a collective decision for your organization, because organized business to businesses, organizational is going to change. I think Victoria touched upon this culture. It's very important how we embrace some of these changes, how the decision making happens, even how the business diversion happens in terms of doing the things, not what you do actually how you do things, right? In that case, first is obviously the strategy. Secondly, it's we have to have the right ecosystem, right? Do you have the right data strategy? Do you have the team in place, right? Thirdly, when you have all of these things, is the senior management, are we really leveraging this outcome of this AI analytics to make decisions? Now, that's where I think, in my view, what I've seen in the past, yes, you have a good AI strategy, you have a good data strategy, but it sits with the CIO's team, right? It doesn't move from CIO to the senior management, rest of the business teams. So they don't take some of these outcomes or insights that is delivering through the data, because sometimes it's a denial, right? For example, sales team will say my clients are happy, but the CIO's team says, but the data says it's not. But typically it's come to a denial that no, it's not. I mean, because I talk to my clients, I know what they feel, they're happy, right? So this is it's a big contention in our industry. That's why as a strategy also have to align into the senior management. All of these things, the teams together have to come and define what is my data strategy, what is my delivery model, right? How I'm going to deliver this AI, the solutions to my business. Then the team composition. Do we have the right team in place for me to deliver this the rapid pace of the models, the tuning and the tweaking that is required? That's why maybe, for example, the CIO's teams and the business teams always in a little bit of a denial because of minor error is attributed to the larger, more like ineffectiveness of this analytics, what it gives you. So then the fourth, that's where the fourth pillar comes in. You have to have the right AI ops team in place. All the insights, all the outputs, all the predictive models that you have giving the results have to be retuned, readjusted, and kind of recalibrated. Yeah. Then it's again, if you don't have the right strategy and the right alignment, this is also difficult, because as I told you, it's a denial. It comes into play. So all the teams, the right strategy have to come in place to say, okay, we need to leverage this to drive our business forward. As I told you in the previous one, the productivity is very, very important. Through this, if you leverage it right, your productivity is going to increase because your accuracy is going to improve, your predictability is going to improve, and your delivery speed is going to improve, right? So all of this is leading into a better strategy for an enterprise to leverage AI in a right spirit. Yeah. So there are 4 pillars again. So like data strategy, making sure your delivery model is in place, and you have the right team in place with the right skills. And finally, again, you have the right operational model to deliver this AI output and the outcome for the entire management to execute the strategy and align it to the strategy.
Correct. Thushera, I think your point, I think that really resonates with me is this cohesiveness of not just the CIO, but also the business teams, right? That's really important. And I think I see in a lot of companies how one person really wants to become data driven, but the rest of the people are not aligned. And I think that's such a good point that you made, right? I'm going to turn again to Albert here, right? Because you are a company that sells pretty much really good products for analytics and AI solutions. There is also two ways of growing this, right? The product itself has to enhance and has to grow. And then obviously not just the product, the person who consumes the product has to operationally execute it well as well. These two really needs to marry to really see return scaling. In your experience, kind of tell us, take us through one key use case and tell us how you grew the product, and not just the product of your company, but really ensure that the growth of the executional operationalization also took place, and how you really scaled returns as well. Albert, if you can just take on that.
Sure, thanks, Ashinka. Thushera has mentioned a very important point, that it all begins with data strategy, because it tries to answer what the company vision is, or why is it trying to do what it does. Now, telcos continue to grow in terms of size, capability, and complexity. This requires adapting analytic capability to the growing demand. So this is where machine learning and artificial intelligence come in handy, because with those tools, the telcos are able to handle and process trillions of interactions, billions of analytic models. And not only that, it continues to learn, adapt, and improve analytic models on the fly. Now, ML and AI, it makes feedback loop quicker and smarter, improving efficiency and return scale several folds. Now, it requires a combination of a good mix of product growth and executional changes. Now, what we currently see as a major stumbling block is the organizational inertia preventing telcos from leapfrogging and totally transforming their current operational practices. Now, Ashinka, you asked for a simple use case. Let me take you to a simple use case like a churn, for example, which is the potential for any telco to lose customers to competition. Now, there is a growing trend for telcos to orchestrate everything: subscriber data, network data, and social data. Put them together as a superset of data and leverage this, orchestrate this for various department benefits. It may be the call center department knowing what the concerns are before a customer makes a complaint. It could be a sales and marketing person knowing when to timely push promotion, to lock in customers for upsell and to prevent churn. Or it could be the network department trying to troubleshoot and solve coverage and capacity problems, even before customers feel service degradation. Now, with a lot of this data, ML and AI makes it possible that the combination of megasets of data from customer, from network, and from social insights, they can be used as business predictors and manage churn, giving the telco better return scale, which means achieving better outcomes with less effort. Now, to put specific context to that use case, we have helped a telco, a big telco, reduce their churn from 3% down to less than 1%. And this telco is worth 150 billion US dollar business. So imagine the size of savings, turned revenue. Now, there's a lot of analytics behind that, but the bottom line is the business outcome of billions of dollars is save revenue in that particular example. And there are many other use cases illustrating that point, but the bottom line is we have to utilize machine learning and AI so that we are able to leverage all the possible data that we can gather from within and from outside the organization.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Victoria, I'm going to ask you this question, right? This is a very buzzing topic these days as well. A lot of the organizations, talk about this, especially on the theme of scaling, but not really being stuck, right? We want to scale in a very kind of constant growth. The two avenues I see in how you can scale is to, I think, what Albert said, product growth, or through just scaling the execution itself, right? Now, growth hacking is a methodology that Silicon Valley preaches on, right? A lot of the internet companies talk about growth hacking. But can telcos really implement this? And if so, how can this rapid experimentation and through that, how can we really scale? Talk us through about this methodology that everyone speaks of, Victoria.
Okay. Okay, so growth hacking is a term focused on the rapid growth of a company with limited budget. And this term comes from those early stage startups that need to demonstrate in a very short period of time an exponential growth. So the idea behind growth hacking is to take a very limited budget and stretch it to the maximum. And this can be and can facilitate SMEs when they are starting to grow. But with corporations, these growth hacking techniques that could be also called quick wins, if they are isolated actions, they are not going to contribute to the long-term sustainable growth of the company. So in telcos, for example, we implement quick wins, but those quick wins has to be seen as a long-term plan, okay? So my recommendation would be, if I have to choose a quick win, I don't have to only see that they are generating value quickly. I have to see that they are a step forward the company's goal. If a quick win can be framed into the company's goal, then it's not going to be a good quick win. It's not going to be a good project. Probably it's going to take longer than it could be.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna come to Vishal now, right? We talked about strategy. We talked about scaling through analytics and AI. But I think really it comes down to people, right? If people are not bought in, if you don't have the right mindset in the organization, it's not gonna really work out. Talk us through some of the short-term and the long-term strategies that you think to make that would help an organization to make sure that their people are kind of aligned to the company's strategy and they think data, they think AI, and that cultural change really happens. Take us through some of these things, Vishal.
Thank you. You see, as I said earlier, it is not about technology. First and foremost thing that we need to keep in mind. It is about people adopting technology to solve business problem, whatever the business problem is. A lot of time what organizations do is they invest a lot, but the investment, where does it go? That goes into the technology piece, right? People who are closely attached to it. But how about investment into the peripheral and the people? People who are somehow just a little bit outside of your core agile team. How about them? We have to think about investing in adaptation systems as well, not just on the core technology. When I talk about adaptation, I'm talking about, let me give you an example, say, business planning or finance. How would they, a finance budgeting team, how would they help you, assist you in your rapid prototyping? Have we invested enough there so that they understand the outcome? Or does HR understands how to, have a right data science team in place, or what does it even mean to have a right data scientist? Or I give you an example of IT. I mean, IT systems, are we looking into those areas? So it's just not about the core technology piece that we have to look into, but we have to look into the surrounding periphery and need to ensure that, I mean, there is enough investment that is being done on adaptation, training, so that the entire end-to-end ecosystem flows through it. And you see, business has to be responsible for it so that it never does not become a technology discussion, but rather an organizational discussion. And here, what happens is the top management plays a vital role. While a CEO is out there leading from the front, but the likes of CIO, CHRO, Chief Operating Officer, CMO, CFOs, they have to play a lubricant role in order to ensure that these things are adapted properly, right? So my suggestion is, while we make a few years plan on adoption of this technology, please start looking from the area which is immediately outside of your core so-called AI or technology area, and that will help us to form a better understanding of the scenarios, and then we could think about our AI Academy or any other academies from that particular perspective, and how do we operationalize it. So this is what I have to say. Please be mindful on the investment. It just can't be on the technology piece. A lot or equal amount has to go into the peripheral and ensuring that the entire ecosystem is out there to help your centralized investment. Thank you.
That's such a good insight, because investment is not something many organizations work on, right? But really, I think having this at the core, and then people, I think all these 4 panelists here spoke about investing in people and making sure people understand it, and I think that's such a important pillar of this data-driven strategy or AI-driven strategy as well. So I'm going to tie this conversation really, and I'm going to ask this question from all the panelists here. There are challenges that we have, and any organization will have to face when it comes to scaling through AI, right? What is one thing that makes a company not ready to scale through AI? I think, Thushera, if you can answer this first, tell us why a company would not be ready to scale through AI.
You need a one answer or a few answers?
One answer. Pick your top one.
Okay. The reason is because there are multiple attributes is affecting why you can't move on with AI, right? Even it starts with you have data, but you don't have information. Good example is, I think there are maybe a lot of techies here. Analysis of logs. You have a logs. Yeah, when you are saying, do you have the data? I have the log files. But what you have in the log file sometimes is, if you have the right strategy in what you really log, what you get out of it is you can't get to the root cause, right? You have set of data, like maybe timestamp and who and what and everything, but not into the integrities. So in that case, it's not just having data, you have to have the relevant data which extract the enough information. Yeah, so then that is one for sure. Secondly, again, having the right use cases. So sometimes because of you need to get into the AI, you start actually looking at, okay, get a particular use case and implement it. You start with the right use case. That's actually leading into kind of build and enhance and keep kind of bettering what exactly you're going to deliver to your clients, right? So since you asked one, I'll stop at, yes, have the right data strategy, and also making sure you pick the right use case that for you to move on. There are other maybe a lot of attributes, maybe 10, 20 attributes that what is make really kind of successful in your AI strategy. So, but again, let's move into this, maybe trickle down to these 2 attributes to summarize.
Thanks, Thushera. Victoria, what's your top pick here? What makes a company not ready for this AI scaling?
Yeah, if I had to choose one, I would choose the cultural transformation. And let me give you an example. In Telefonica, we started with big data in 2012. In 2012, we already have some data monetization products for the B2B market. We had a unified reference model, a unified data model all across our 17 operations. So all the OBs could speak the same language. They could adopt the same use case because they spoke that same language. We also had one of the best digital assistants in the world thanks to AI. But something that we don't forget and that we keep on with is the cultural transformation. So thousands of employees have been trained through our Data Academy, an online platform. We constantly have big data programs called big data ambassadors for people that are not related to data, but they are our champions in all our geographies. We also have a use case discovery workshops, so our employees know how to do that discovery and prioritization that we talked before. And also we have short programs, short workshops for the top managers. So the executive level is inspired and they are aware of how important big data is. So for me, it would be the cultural transformation.
Yes, that's a good one. And I think the analytics ambassador stood out for me. That's such a good point, and it's a good strategy, I think, for a lot of companies that could adopt. Vishal, coming to you, what is your top pick? What is your topic that makes a company not ready for AI?
I think I've spoken it on both the earlier agendas that I talk about. It is, if an organization thinks it is about technology, that's where the entire mess is. It is about people. It is about business, and it is, as Victoria just said, it's culture, people and culture, right? If you get it right, you're there. If not, sorry, the entire program fails, as simple as it is. So, short and sweet answer for me.
Thanks, Vishal. Thank you. Albert, over to you. What do you think?
Okay, so my dear colleagues, Thushera, Victoria, and Vishal has covered my top three. So I'll probably add the fourth one in my mind. It's about growing data and analytics complexity. So imagine during 1G and 2G, telcos are only concerned about voice. Then came data. Now came different types of data serving not only people, but also machines and enterprises. 5G and IoT promotes even further data explosion. It means faster, bigger data, and more devices. So all of this present really a lot of challenges because the more technology progresses, adopting and scaling AI has to adjust to these new requirements. And not only that, with new capabilities, the customer expectation of service level is even becoming more demanding. So with that, I think those, aside from the top three that they've mentioned, that will be the fourth one that I'll add, the growing data and analytics complexity that's coming in to the telco world.
Okay, thank you. That's we can conclude our session. Thank you very much. I think it was a wonderful conversation. I think a lot of the people, I'm sure, got lots of insightful points from this conversation, right? You are all, after all, leaders ahead of this curve, so your knowledge is very much valued here, and thank you very much for giving your expert and sharing expert knowledge more than anything. So that is all for this theme of scaling analytics and scaling AI, and through scaling returns through this AI conversation. I'm going to hand over back to Ridmi to finally conclude. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.